One thing I would like to discuss before I end this demo is about how SVGs, well, basically they don't embed fonts. Now, earlier, so far everything looks fine on my computer, but then again, something that's important to understand about this is that the font that I'm using is something that already exists on my computer. So if I were to go to another computer that didn't have this font, then it wouldn't show up properly with the way that we've done it. And you might be asking, okay, well, why did we go and download it from Google Fonts or whatever you downloaded it from? That was so that you could use it inside of Illustrator. You can't just link to a web font and be able to open it and use it inside of an application natively on your computer. It doesn't actually embed the web fonts unless you do something very special inside the file. And I don't want to get into all of that because that's a little bit more advanced than we need to get right now. But I do want to make a point to tell you that if you do use a specialty font that other people might not have on their computers, then this might not show up properly. So I'm going to show you a couple of things about an SVG that are kind of interesting, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open that file that we just made in Komodo Edit. This is what it looks like, all right? If you double click an SVG file on your computer, depending on what applications you have, it might actually open it up in a code view, which is very strange. It might seem very strange. One thing I want you to notice is that because this is a vector file and because it's basically a bunch of code that draws the words out, you can actually read it sort of like, almost like an HTML file, but really it's an XML encoding file. So I want you to look at something where it says text and you see the word everything inside the text tags, and then next you see text and you see the word relative inside the text tags. Well, basically, sort of similar to HTML, it's telling it what it wants to do. It's saying text transform, and it gives it the matrix and the color and the font family and so forth. And it's telling it to use this word inside of it. Well, like I said, if somebody doesn't have this particular font on their computer, and they probably don't, then chances are that this isn't going to show up looking the way I wanted it to look. So there's some special ways that you could embed stuff in here, but we're not, as I said, going to go over that. I want to show you just a really quick and dirty way of doing it in Illustrator where you can make sure that it will definitely always appear the way you want it to. So I'm going to go tell you to open your file again if you've already closed it. And I want you to select your text, and I'm holding down Shift to select both of these. And what I want you to do is I want you to go up to where it says type, and you're going to choose create outlines. Okay, and that looks crazy, but if you click off of it somewhere, then it looks normal. And what that just did was it basically turned something that was editable text into a vector drawing. And so now it's not relying on the instructions from the actual font file, so you don't have to have that font on your computer. Now it's literally using math to draw this vector. And so I'm going to show you how that would look. So if I go ahead and I'm going to do, I'm just going to, for right now, do save as, and I'm going to call it something different. Okay, let's just call it 2. All right, and I'll just save that maybe to my desktop or something. And I can embed, but it doesn't really matter. And I could go over all of this stuff. I'm not going to fool with it. I'm just going to go ahead and say OK. And now I'm going to close this. I'm going to open the file that we just made. And let's see if we can find the new one. And look how different that is, okay? And what's happening is that we don't have the words inside of it anymore. Instead, what we have is we have a path, and it's got all of these parameters to create, like this is the letter E, for instance, and I believe that this might be the letter V or something. the next one. So I just wanted to show you how that changed the file, but basically now these are all coordinates for the drawing of those letters. Okay, now that will definitely not change ever on somebody's computer. So if I wanted to load, let's say that we're going to go to, let's say we're going to go to my desktop real quick, and we're going to find my new file here. See, it looks the same. It still scales, no problem. If I right click this and I say inspect element, you'll see that in fact I could click that open in there, those crazy paths, and then if I highlight this, you see that that's the letter E. I highlight this one, that's the letter V. That's a lot simpler. Letter E because of all the curves and the shapes and stuff, right? And so forth, okay? And so that gives you sort of an idea of how an SVG is really different. There's no way that if I were to right click and inspect on a JPEG, it would ever give me something that looked like this because it's a binary file. This is not a binary file, it's basically an XML type of file. Okay, so that is going to be the end of my demo. This is where you should probably end up leaving off with your file so that you can make sure that everybody's going to see it the same way. Now, what I would also suggest is that if you're probably going to be okay, like if you're using Arial or something that's on the safe list for web fonts that, you know, all people on PCs and Macs are going to have. But if you always want to just be safe, you can turn all of your text into outlines, and then just to make sure that screen readers can read what the text is, you would just put in your alternative text or your alt text what it actually says. Okay? All right, that's the end of the demo. Have fun making this.